Hello, and welcome to the Kane Sterling BIM presentation. Today we're going to take an in-depth look at the Kane security screens and Kane detention products for Revit Architecture. Kane Sterling has teamed up with the Revit content developers at Revitus to create a comprehensive Revit content library full of information-rich, fully parametric families that are very functional and user-friendly. Let's jump right in. The Kane security screens Revit families have been strategically developed with the Revit end user in mind. Each security screen model has been created to offer an authentic representation of its real-life counterpart. All of the Kane Sterling Revit content has been developed following the guidelines of the Autodesk Revit Model Content Style Guide. This helps to ensure that this content is of high quality and performs well in the Revit project environment. All Kane security screens are classified under the Specialty Equipment Revit category and have been developed as wall-based families. This requires a wall to be placed in the Revit project prior to inserting a screen component. Each family file includes a wealth of information, all of which has been deliberately coordinated with the actual product specifications. These families are fully parametric and will ensure superior functionality when they are loaded into the Revit project environment. Let's take a closer look at the parameters included here in our first example, the surface-mounted Level 5 operable steel narrowline. At the very top of the Family Types dialog box, you will find the family type name. For all Kane security screen family types, the name is simply denoted by the overall width by height of the unit and should always be expressed in inches for consistency. Every Kane security screens family file will have at least one predefined type. This gives the architect a great starting point from which to begin modifying the parameter values to meet the needs of the specific project. Additional types can be created easily in either the Revit project environment or here in the Family Editor. Here you would simply click the New button, fill in the new size for the type name, click OK, and adjust all parameter values as necessary. You can have an unlimited number of family types included within each family file, and each type will typically represent a different size. As we investigate the parameters included in this example, you may notice that several parameter values are grayed out. This prevents the parameter value from being modified manually and may have been done so for a number of reasons. For example, notice that the first grouping of parameters is labeled as constraints. These types of parameters typically don't want to allow for modifications because they are designed to satisfy the rules of the components. As the specifications and actual product limitations will reveal, a center mullion may be required if the width of the unit exceeds 50 inches. Instead of requiring the architect to be fully knowledgeable about every limitation of each product, we've simply built this functionality right into the Revit content. Often, these rule limitations will be expressed as conditional statements in the form of formulas. When a parameter value is changed, and the rule is either satisfied or broken, Revit will automatically adjust the model elements to remain accurate to the product limitations. Sometimes these formulas can get quite complex, but this will ensure that the models function just like the actual physical products they represent. These locked out parameters should not be tampered with. To finish out the topic of locking out parameters, other reasons for doing so include the following. If only one option exists, such as a material that is always finished with a black powder coat finish, or if the specifications alert the architect of product limitations as a text note, we have included that information in the Revit content as well, simply to help educate the architect about the product allowances and limitations. When multiple options are available for one parameter, the Revit user may be presented with a simple drop-down selection box. Just choose the option you want to specify, and Revit can then automatically schedule that option for you. Shared parameters have been defined accordingly. These selectable lists have been pre-populated with all of the standard options based on the product specifications. When multiple options exist for the graphics of a material, however, an ellipsis button will launch the materials dialog box and will allow for any selection in the materials list. All of the standard finish options have been included within each family file. This way, when any Kane Sterling Revit component is loaded into the Revit project environment, all of the available materials and finishes for that product will be loaded as well, giving the architect easy access to choose the finishes required for the project. Each material has been custom developed to include visual properties for color and shaded views, and surface and cut patterns. Render appearances have been applied to ensure that the same high-quality level of detail will be evident when the architect generates his photorealistic renderings of the Revit BIM model. It should be pointed out now that two separate sets of materials parameters have been included in each family file. One will control the way Revit graphically displays the material in the model. The other will control how Revit schedules the material. Revit currently does not allow for these two parameters to be linked, so it will be up to the architect to verify that they are coordinated in his building information model. Additional functionality has been added to some of the family files to allow a simple toggle checkbox to turn on or off additional accessories. In the SNR50 example, there is an option to show an aesthetic horizontal brace. This conveniently enhances the design options to allow the architect more flexibility in matching a window mullion pattern. The height of the horizontal brace can then be controlled independently using the parameters found under the dimensions grouping. Speaking of the dimensions parameters, we have again made the architect's job as easy as possible. For all surface-mounted security screens, we have included parameters for daylight opening width and daylight opening height. So even if the architect doesn't know how far the frame is required to overlap the opening, they can simply enter the actual window size using the daylight opening parameters, and Revit will calculate the overall unit width and height for you. Let me point out that the dimensional parameters for the reveal mount families are different. As you can see, the daylight opening parameters are omitted, but a wall inset parameter has been included. This will allow the architect to control how far back into the wall the security screen is recessed. Other than these few slight parameter differences, the surface mount families and the reveal mount families are essentially identical. For all security level 5 and higher screens, additional data parameters have been included to emphasize that the products have passed the Housing and Urban Development SAG, Impact, and Forced Entry tests. The identity data group of parameters helps complete each family file. You will find a lot of useful information here, starting with a website homepage link. Simply click the ellipsis to the right of the URL, and the default web browser will automatically launch and take the architect straight to the new Kane Sterling website. To go one step further, we have included a product page URL, which will take the architect directly to the specific web page to get more information about the product they are working with in the Revit model. Additional information found in the identity data parameters includes security level, model number, manufacturer, description, and we have even given the Revit users direct access to the Revit Content Creator website in case they want to learn more information about Revitus, or if they want to provide feedback about these files. Also included is a CSI specification section reference, as well as the version of the Revit file. This will help troubleshoot any problems that could potentially arise by ensuring that the architect is working with the most current file. All Kane Sterling Revit content has been developed with the 2011 version of Autodesk Revit Architecture. Since Revit is not backwards compatible, these files won't work in Revit 2010 or older, but they will work with Revit 2011 and all future versions of the software. In April 2012, it is our intent to upgrade the Kane Sterling Revit content to become 2012 Revit files, to stay just one release behind the most current version.